Well, welcome, Jordan-Kane Lewis. Your roles on the Touch of Vengeance, please.
I was the co-writer, director, producer, shot, edited. I did majority of the sound, like Foley and stuff.
Okay, so it's kind of your baby, just a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you for submitting such a great movie. And just to put this in perspective here, this is a final term student movie, which I think was pretty stunning, absolutely stunning. And to me, it was incredibly refreshing that we've got a movie about gangsters and hitmen, but you are not romanticizing. You are not glorifying their behavior or their criminal behavior in any way. You're actually you're addressing the consequences of childhood trauma and learned behavior. Why? What motivates you to go this way rather than, I would say, the more typical gangster hitman movie?
I just think it's been seen a million times. I know there's films that would be similar to in this genre, which have definitely like influenced the film, from like Leon the Professional and stuff. But instead of going down like a film about like romance and stuff, which Luc Besson would say that the film's about, it's more like a mentor relationship. So he's been in the same situation as Leona, as Maria in the film has been in. So he's kind of projected himself onto her and then trying to basically, some of the faults, in the world that he's in, highlight that, and then hopefully she doesn't do like the same things, but revenge kind of perpetuates itself.
Absolutely.
So therefore, she falls into the same trap. And at the end, I try to keep it like ambiguous, but the idea is going into a rabbit hole, so going further into the world. So the idea is it's just going to get worse.
Absolutely, and that comes across. And that final, when she's just doing the narration over the end, there completely sums up the entire ethos of what you just said, which is fantastic. You mentioned Leon the Professional, which is clearly an influence. Yeah, Luc Besson, or what are your influences? Who inspires you?
In this film, there's loads of influences because there's like a lot of overt, narrative storytelling, and then subvert. So I'd say Luc Besson, Leon the Professional is definitely a big influence, but then I'd say Christopher Doyle's cinematography. He's the cinematographer for Carl Wai, who does has done films like In the Mood for Love. It's a lot of like Hong Kong cinema, so he's like probably the most famous alter to come out of Hong Kong cinema. And then I'd say South Korean cinema, there's a lot of like revenge thrillers and stuff, which there's like homages to. For instance, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance by Park Chan, I think it's Park Chan Wook, who did Old Boy, well, the Vengeance trilogy, and obviously films called The Touch of Vengeance, so a little nod to that. But yeah, I'd say the main influences of the film.
Lovely, thank you. And we don't see it too often, but you employed a technique which is called step printing.
Yep.
Which is highly effective when used properly. What inspires you to do that, and how do you keep control and know exactly when to use it and when not? And maybe explain what it is as well, if that's okay.
So step printing is a technique traditionally used by Christopher Doyle within his films. He's normally he's a cinematographer who's worked mainly. His biggest claim to fame would be with Wong Kar-wai's films. But basically, we did some test shots and realised that some of the faults with low-budget films, when you're doing action scenes and high-intensity scenes, is the blocking and stuff. And obviously, we had a short time, so we only shot for 23 days, so we didn't have much time for rehearsals. So a lot of it was like we had the meeting with the actors. They would learn their lines, and there was a little back and forth, but not too much. So to get over that, we did a lot of. So after doing the test, I realised that I could intercut, and it would look, because it's a little bit jarring for the audience. You can get away with a lot more by using that technique. So obviously multiple different things, but also it looks really visually distinct. And using this in a gangster film wouldn't be a typical, you'd normally use this technique maybe in a more arty film, more like film design for filmmakers. But yeah, I just thought to make it stand out a little bit, because there's obviously other films within the genre that it's a competitive industry, and I do want to stand out visually. So yeah, that's why I employed that.
No, absolutely did stand out, and we don't see it very often. And then when it's used well, it is highly effective. Thank you. Leona Clark, I mean, an amazing performance there. I mean, to bring a piece of pathos to a gangster hitman movie is quite an achievement. So that's obviously down to you and to Leona there. How did you get Leona? What inspired you to get her? I mean, she's an established actress.
So I got kind of lucky. So Martin, who plays the big bad guy in the film, had worked previously with Leona on some other films. Not on one other film, Inspector Calls.
Yes.
And we had a meeting, so we went all the way down we came to Oxfordshire or London, I forgot which place we came because it's so long ago now. But yeah, we had a conversation, talked about the project, and yeah, she was completely on board from the beginning. She got the script early, so I guess before we got there, she already kind of knew what the gist of the film was. But yeah, she just she loved the film. So
yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's great.
The way she holds that in, that's brilliant. And Martin, is he known for doing these incredibly nasty characters? He was fantastic.
Yeah, Martin was great. He was the first person to get on board with the project. So he at the time he lived in Sheffield. We went and met him. We had I think we had 3 meetings. One near Christmas, just before the project, because we started basically casting in August, and it was probably like 3 months before we cast everyone, and then filming in January. This is just before COVID kind of really hit, so we got kind of lucky because we filmed in January. But yeah, Martin was great, completely different to what I've seen in him before. I mean, he'd done played bad guys before, but he'd just not played a bad guy like this, and then especially him having a beard completely changed the way he looks, because he's normally clean shaven, looks completely different.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
He was great. He was fantastic. So we've got a crazy small budget on this, and the ratio, the production value on this to your budget is pretty ridiculous. I mean, talk to me about the budget. How did you manage to achieve what you did on such a small budget? And give a piece of advice and inspiration for those struggling out there on such small amounts of money.
Well, for the budget was only 2,000, but to get around that, we used universities and colleges and stuff, so that's where I approached. Obviously I'm from Sheffield, so if you're filming in places like London and Manchester, for instance, like bigger cities, it may become a little bit more difficult, but Sheffield's obviously like a smaller place, but it's primarily in a small town just outside of Sheffield, which was Romford, but obviously for the introduction when Leona first comes back, that's in Sheffield and stuff, so it's a combination of two. So realistically, in the film, it's like in a city that doesn't really exist, because it's kind of a combination of all these other places. But yeah, I guess approaching the universities for extras and stuff, and colleges, and they were really on board getting the casting. Albert, who plays the son of Marcus, that was through college as well. So you can find good actors and stuff and up and coming actors from colleges and universities and stuff. So yeah. And I guess try to create a film which basically any actor wants to attach themselves to, because that makes it a lot easier. So for instance, when we were going in, obviously we had the script and everything, and obviously they'd known about the characters before because I had a few conversations before actually the meetings, and yeah, they were on board as soon as read it. Yeah,
have a great script basically.
Yeah.
Not basically, but to an extent. I felt it was quite reassuring to see a very, very conscientious approach to the balance between handheld and tripod. And this is something that I think we're losing control of with some of the more younger directors nowadays. Can you talk to us about how you consider that, and how you consider the framing and the blocking, and where we're going to use handheld and where we should be using the tripod?
So for this film, I really wanted something that was more controlled. So I was always conscious about the visuals. So when I come from a filmmaking side, I come from a technical side, so before narrative. So obviously I'm obsessed with camera gear and stuff. So I knew I wanted everything to look really controlled and everything. But yeah, so that was one of the reasons how we got some of the actors on board, is because I came in with all this knowledge and I was bombarding them with information. Obviously it can be really annoying if you're not tech orientated. But yeah, so I'd say it's definitely something that's been lost, because gimbals and stuff, and they feel like this technology, you become a little bit technology obsessed. So I did have that phase, but luckily it was before I did my feature. But But yeah, I did a short film called Liquid Violence, which was before this. It was no budget. The production value was like really bad, but it was like one of my first shorts, and that kind of had the same cinematography, and tying into the idea that I wanted my own distinct style. I wanted it to juxtapose the the step printing and stuff, because if you noticed, a lot of the handheld scenes are actually just a step printing, and it's because you can get away with it because it's so jarring. So again, that comes to testing and doing practice shots and stuff. But yeah, I didn't want it to feel amateurish, so like constantly on the shoulder and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't really a shoulder rig. It was more like actually pointing the camera, because the camera's so small, which is fortunate because I shot on the Blackmagic Pocket 6K at the time. The Pro wasn't out. But yeah, we just used a zoom lens as well to obviously get some of the shots. There's some really slow zooms, which you might not have noticed, but yeah, just trying to be like really methodical with it.
Slow zooms actually in the camera, not using it in the suite, the editor suite.
No, in some scenes we did have digital zooms, obviously because in post it's like, I didn't have that on the day. But you can't really tell the difference with the scenes. So the big wide shot, that's got a really slow zoom. But yeah.
Okay, great. In regard to locations, were there any difficulties on such a tiny budget? Are you actually having to approach the councils, etc., to get location like the lake, etc.? Was this a challenge?
Yeah. Fortunately, the lake and stuff I didn't organise that or anything. But for the other locations, for instance, like the buildings and stuff like the Thai bar and stuff, what we had to do was approach, and then because I was obviously a student and I'm local, they're willing to help, and obviously it's a bigger project. So the council jumped on board anyway, like with for instance, the car park sequence. It's actually quite easy, but it's just time consuming to get like car parks and stuff. And normally, if you're a student, they'll give you discounts and stuff like that. So it's not too difficult, but it's just make sure you have someone who can, I'd say, help with that, which fortunately I did. So
great. You've got many hats on in this project. How do you, as an editor, edit your own material, and in the knowledge that other people are going to watch it? And I mean, as a writer, director, editor, there's an easy trap to fall into, is to, I love that line, I love that shot, but actually it's superfluous to requirement, and really it should be cut out. How do you control yourself in that situation?
Even though the film's fairly slow, I never wanted it to be too boring. So if it started to feel as if it was getting boring, I then do like a cutaway, or I'll go to a different scene, which hopefully I've managed to do like well from an audience perspective. But yeah, I'd say stepping away. So don't be editing constantly. Have like a little break, maybe a week or so, or a few days before coming back. Maybe try to get feedback off peers that you trust, who will actually give you honest feedback, not people that are just going to reinforce your, this is great, when actually this really needs to be cut.
And if you can find those people, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah,
those ones that genuinely going to say, I'm not so sure about that, that's a bit long.
Yeah,
etc. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So has it been seen anywhere else? How's it been received?
Went to two other festivals. I think one was an online one, and one was Southport, which is like a B movie festival. Because the film's I think it's like a combination of like a B movie and like a more like gangster, arty film. But yeah, it's been received really well, especially from the community, like where we filmed and stuff. But yeah, so I think this is the third festival so far. Right. So yeah,
and we're so pleased to have it. So we slightly touched upon it a couple of questions back about your conscientious approach to consideration of shots, framing, how we're going to shoot it, etc. Which, of course, any quality director will be doing all the time. But with the ease of access now to equipment, as opposed to many, many years ago, and we had this conversation yesterday, didn't we? Do you think this is diluting the quality of movie making, taking away technicians' aspirations to be an artisan within their field?
I'd say yeah, it does definitely opens up doors, but it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So it opens up one door, but then maybe closes another in some ways. For instance, just more methodical filmmaking, like using tripods and stuff, sliders and stuff. Obviously, it requires a crew, and if you want to be a solo filmmaker, obviously it's easier to get a gimbal and stuff. But then you're losing some of like the qualities that a slider has. over the gimbal. Obviously, gimbal's like easy use. Yeah, sorry to hate on the gimbal. It's just like I hate that some of the dropping on some of it, because I used to like own a little like a Ronin M, and it was just some of the qualities of it I didn't necessarily like. But yeah, definitely ease of access to equipment obviously has become easier, but I guess it's made people just want to constantly make films. So you have some filmmakers that make hundreds and hundreds of films, or like, you know, too many films in like one go, and they're not really thinking of like, I guess, the story as much. It's more about wanting to make a film instead of making a film for a particular reason, which isn't an issue, but it's just, I feel like if you want to connect to more people, you got to try to be more conscientious about the film that you're trying to tell, even though this is like a B movie,
Absolutely, I think it's a fantastic answer. And you mentioned sliders. I mean, you can look at the Avengers. I mean, you can look at huge quarter of a billion movies, and all they're doing is sticking it on a slider, and it's going left, right, and that's not direction in my view. Do we have any questions from the audience? It'd be wonderful to give Jordan a question or two, if anyone's got one. I know we haven't got. There's one over here.
Sitting sharing some sausage and egg with Dad this morning, he was giving me some of your tricks of the trade and how you taught yourself a bit of filming. What would you say is the biggest thing you learned while making this movie about filmmaking? But the second part of that is also about yourself while making this movie.
So I'd say, what is there? So was it? What's the biggest thing I learned from? I guess equipment. You do need equipment. You need like a decent camera and stuff. I know it's it's always reinforced that you can make a film with anything, but I still think that if you want to hit a certain quality, it definitely helps with the equipment. So for instance, if I'm a bad filmmaker, I've got a good camera. At least the images that's coming out the camera are going to look nice. So it's like obviously color depth and stuff. But yeah, I guess biggest thing I learned was try to let the scene breathe a little bit more. I've just shot my next feature last January, this year, and I realised make a shot list, because for A Touch of Vengeance I didn't have a shot list, so that was the biggest issue. I came in thinking, I know the particular shots I want, so on the script I kind of like had little shots vaguely, but I was just shooting for coverage. Because I've done like obviously commercial work in the past, so for instance like a 3-camera setup, that kind of thing. But on this one we only had 1 camera, so I was like, I could just shoot all this, but that's an issue when you come to editing, because then you don't know particularly what you want. So for A Touch of Vengeance, we shot so many different versions of each scene. The film could have been completely different. So like for instance the cafe scene where the slow zoom in, that was shot like maybe 6 different ways. So we had shot, reverse shot, the master, and then it just, when you get to editing, it's like you just don't need that. You don't need all these cutaways when the acting's actually happening on screen, and you're seeing all the different motions. And because it was such a perfect take, it was like this works so much better than all these. I'd say advise, definitely get a shot list. Yeah,
that's good advice. And I'm quite impressed that you didn't have a shot list. Any other questions? I can see a hand up over there, and another one there.
Thank you so much. Kind of 2-part question. If you had the budget to make any film you wanted, what film would you make, and who would you cast in it?
Who I'd cast would be a difficult one, but I'm working hopefully towards a vampire film. At the moment I'm doing my masters, and I've only gone to Sheffield Hallam just for the commercial side. But the film that I'm really wanting to make at this point in time, I'd say I've got this like Cthulhu vampire one I really want to do. It's obviously a little bit different. It's a mix of like I've got the film. I was speaking to someone about it. It's the actor from Event Horizon and Possession. He was in a Cthulhu film, and it's like a mix of that mixed with Let the Right Ones In. So, and it'd be set in a small town in England, and it's something that like at the moment I don't feel like it has been seen. But yeah, that's definitely something I want to do. And actors, I don't have a clue, because it'd be like non-named, because it's horror, you can kind of get away with that. But if I had like an unlimited budget, I don't know, maybe something that's similar to On the Silver Globe, because that's like my favourite film. On the Silver Globe, it's same director as Possession, and he basically made 80% of the film, but never completed it because the Soviet Union like pulled all the funding for it, and it's just a crazy film, like it's off the wall. Yeah.
There was another hand up over there. There we go. Who's got the mic?
Okay. I must confess, we just came in for the last 20 or so minutes, so we haven't seen the whole film. I loved what we saw. So I don't think it's black and white for the whole thing, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the decision to make it in black and white. Was it something that was wanting to do all along? Were you filming it in and decided halfway through, but this works as a black and white film? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So multiple reasons for the black and white. I watched a video on Christopher Nolan. His first feature was black and white. Following. It was a great film, but he said, shoot near windows and stuff. So I kept that consciously in mind. Originally, I did go into the project wanting it to be in colour, but then obviously I realised, the production value that gives the black and white feel and stuff, and I shot it like a noir anyway because I was shooting near windows and I was using 1 or 2 light setups. So yeah, it was originally I did go into the project wanting it in colour, but then in the editing I realised that this is a black and white film, and added so much to the film.
Well, doesn't have a scene back in pretty much every movie so this will be a test.
Hi, Jordan. So you talked about, coming in with a bit more insight from the tech side, art to kind of smart story aspect. I wanted to ask, with this film, you also mentioned sort of like the violence. Have you uncovered like a niche or a good skill, a story with like that villain character, and how important is that?
I'd say it comes back to plot. You need, because this is a particular film, you do need an antagonist, if that's what you're kind of trying to get at. Sorry, could you ask me the question again? Sorry.
Just like how, do you think you enjoy like those that story a bit more, like the antagonist?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. So for the next film I've done, we have a similar kind of dynamic. However, I'd say it's less like Martin's character, because I think Martin's he was meant to be a completely evil character. You were meant to hate him completely, and when he bashes the girl's face near the climax of the film, that's just meant to be reinforced that the audience is definitely meant to hate this character. He's not meant to be liked at all, but I think his performance is so good that I can't help but like him. So, yeah.
There's another hand over there.
No, don't give it him. Yeah.
Hi. How old was you when you actually filmed this film?
I was 21.
That's great. Do we have any other questions? No. Jordan, you've just touched upon your next movie. Could you share a little bit more about it and how far along you are with it?
Yeah, so my next project is Nothing Goes. It's kind of like Skins mixed with Bonnie and Clyde. Set like the style of the film, so it's like early 2000s. I still keep the step printing, but in this film, I use it more as like a hyperactive, for the film. So there's 2 different kind of distinct styles. It doesn't use tripod. It's a move away from that. It's more like the cinematography that's in Lily. It's all about Lily Choo Choo, which is a Japanese early 2000s film. It's a really great film. I really highly recommend it. And Spring Breakers with the colours and stuff, because I feel like that's a great, visually speaking, it's a great film.
Are we close? I mean, you've shot it already.
Yeah, shot it in January. This was a faster shoot. The film is coming in about 54 minutes. That's with a few scenes cut, because it's obviously for the pacing and stuff. But it's a lot more fast paced than this. But I feel like it works. So.
Oh, well, we very much hope you submit it to us. That's fantastic. Jordan-Kane Lewis, thank you so much for letting us watch your fantastic movie, for being here, answering all these questions so candidly. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a round of applause.
Cheers.